All right, dare I speak about this? I don't know. What is it? I think it's Plato. It's in my book. Plato, the famous Greek philosopher, on truth. The man who dares to speak the truth is considered both at once a lunatic and a fool. In times of universal deceit, it's a true radical act to speak the truth. I'm not making too much of myself here. Don't worry about that. Mass hysteria. This has occurred on Earth many times. Many notable, just Google it, mass hysteria. Just look at the incidents. I just posted it on Facebook. Often, mainly it's done, often by nuns. You'll notice the early entries for mass hysteria are nuns that all start meowing the same time every day in some convent. A bunch of other things. They dance for days. Some of them die. Young girls often, which is very interesting. Now the reason that, it's warm enough here in Phoenix that I got to use the air conditioner. Let's see if we got to move. I got to move it away a little bit. It's a little bit too loud. Hang on, hang on. I'll slide over here. There'll still be a little bit of light on me, I think. Okay, so why does it affect the feminine more? It's, because the feminine is not as good at repressing things. The male energy, the yang energy, is better at, I'm fine, and suppressing things. So whenever there's collective energies, it'll tend to burst through the emotions. So people that are closer to their emotions, and in general the feminine has been that in this last remembered hysterical epoch we've lived through. So if you look it up, mass hysteria. Now I've been feeling this for a while. One of the things one of my teachers used to tell me towards the end, now I'm not apocalyptic about it, this is actually what I'm feeling is actually a very gentle burp. No fear porn here. No, we're in the end times, this is dangerous, it's all going to hit now, Jesus is coming in the clouds. None of that. Settle down. Okay? Krishna coming in the clouds, Buddha's here, build your bunker in Idaho. None of that. No. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. One more. Two more. Maybe one more. So, mass hysteria has happened a lot throughout history. Okay? I would suggest that towards the end of Atlantis, which America, the USA, and other parts of Australia, Europe, and other parts of the planet are recreating the same Atlantean souls. At the end of Atlantis, as I spoke in the other video, people started going en masse by the hundreds of thousands, crazy. They appeared as if possessed, which is often what happens with these hysterical things. People start speaking in weird tongues and weird fidgeting or sounds, and it catches each other, and it's contagious to other beings. Look up mass hysteria, Google it. When I saw, now I'm going to go some political with this. By the way, caveat right here up front. All our projection on Hillary for prison, Hillary is a psycho bitch, right? Or Obama is a, whatever. Or Trump, I don't care what side you're projecting your shit on, your shadow, your internal crap on, it's equally fruitless. Source doesn't take sides. Source is on everyone's side. So it's equally stupid and projective, Freudian projection, if you're hating Hillary as the globalist bitch, or or Obama as the puppet, or Trump, if you're projecting on him, he's a fascist, egotistical psychopath. If you're projecting those things, the real work is going to be that you point one finger at them, and three fingers pointing back at you. The real healing, the real holding, the real integration has to occur inside yourself. That's why I always talk about that mainly. Inner body awakening, start with that. Go on to the alchemyenergyprocess.com and then theheartenergy.com. By the way, the heart energy, we're just fixing a glitch in it. hang in there for a day or two. I thought I'd talk to my webmaster tonight. So, back to this. The recent Comey thing on the Hill, can't miss it. We don't have TV, but it shows up everywhere. He actually said it now, the former director of FBI, the New York Times story that was the seed for, in my opinion, the mass hysteria hitting the United States, at least a portion of the United States, that is so traumatized, so triggered by Trump being elected, that there has to be some devil. We have to find a devil to blame, a scapegoat. When I watched the second or third debate with Clinton and Trump, and at one point she mentioned Russian hacking, which, by the way, guys, it goes on all the time. Everybody's hacking everybody. The Chinese, the North Koreans, even the Germans and the Brits, we all hack each other. So, of course, there's a bunch of evidence of the Russians trying to hack everything inside the U.S. So do the Chinese, of course. This is a normal thing the last 10 years or so. Hacking, espionage, whether it's country or corporate, is totally just normal. So when Hillary actually says the Russian hacking scam, I felt my jaw drop to the floor, and I could see how this was going to invoke, particularly in Americans, the whole Russians are coming, the Russians are coming, where you had to hide under your desk, and somehow that's going to save you from a nuclear bomb when you're a child. It's Pavlovian imprinting of fear, terror. I could feel it in my whole system. Oh, shit. Really? They're going to scare the population of the Russians are coming. Really? Where's Mel Brooks where you need him? The farcical movie he made in the 60s of the Russians are coming. But it works. My jaw was on the floor. I turned to Joy. I said, oh my God. They're going to invoke Pavlovian triggers. Bing, bing, triggers for fearful Americans. The Russians. Turns out Comey testifies, whatever that thing was on the, in front of the Senate or whatever it was, the hearing committee. The New York Times, anonymous sources, which they can't find now, this is no different than rumor mongering that the Salem witch trials. Those anonymous sources cannot be found now. They are the ones that said about the Russians hacking, and the New York Times printed it. Because the people traumatized by it can't imagine that New York Times says 97% Hillary's going to win. We can't have been that wrong. It's cognitive, the whatever they call it, dissonance. It can't be me. I would never do that. My daddy would never do that, the mafia princess says, where she imagines her dad runs some meatpacking plant. He could never be a mafia boss. That's the denial and cognitive dissonance. So the New York Times can't imagine that they're wrong, so they latch on. What happened? How could this crazy guy win? There must have been something. And the room, I know I'm putting my neck out here a little bit. And again, projecting your shit on Trump or Hillary is a loser's game both ways. So this hysteria, literally, I've been saying it for a couple of weeks now, this is getting hysterical. Hysteria when there's an outside force that you need to project and scapegoat your shit on. It's clinical definition when you read what's going on where the Russians are coming. There's videos, I'm not sure they're still out there, of McCain and Maxine Waters. There's some strange bedfellows. Politics makes for strange bedfellows. And who's the other one? Lindsey Graham. They got trolled by Russian shock jocks, kind of like Opie and Anthony here in America, that called them pretending to be the Ukrainian prime minister. They bought it. I posted it a few months ago. No one's talked about this, where McCain is basically committing treason, believing this is the Ukrainian premier. prime minister, premier, whatever they call it, and Maxine Waters and Lindsey Graham. And they are completely paranoid, going, yeah, we don't know, Trump's very, very dangerous. And they're trolling them. These are shock jocks, DJs from Russia who have a beef with the Ukraine. You should listen to them. Maybe I'll post them here. Of McCain, Senator McCain, I have to repeat it, and Senator or Congresswoman, I forget, Maxine Waters, going, oh yeah, the election was stolen. And they're feeding this to them, and they fall for it. It's hysterical. It's the Salem witch trials. It's nuts. At the end of Atlantis, hundreds of thousands of people literally went insane. As I started to say, one of my teachers years ago said, towards the end, the masses and the elites will be going into hysterical episodes, but they won't notice it, because they'll be going, when the mob goes into a hysterical episode, they all believe it. So you don't think you're going, you know, there's one or two people going, wait a minute, is this real? But very few are those people that can feel for themselves. It's just like after a mob action, and a reporter comes, why did you smash the window and walk out? I don't know, everyone else was doing it. You know, Joseph Goebbels here quotes, you repeat the lie long enough and it becomes the truth. Comey says, the New York Times article was wrong. In whole, the story was false. 3 anonymous, first it was 4, sources that the New York Times run this whole hysterical Russians are coming on. It's literally a collective hysteria for the people that have fallen for it. It's a bit creepy, and the whole thing with how college campuses are going nuts now with, you know, actually shouting people down and using violence, assistant ethics professors hitting people in the head with bike locks that are teaching ethics at universities, really? And the deeper thing, of course, is that which you fight and hate, quote, out here, is really you're fighting your own shadow. So look up mass hysteria. I could feel the chills as Hillary invoked the Red Scare. I go, surely they're not going to play this. But here it is, 6 months later. Again, I'm not taking sides here. You know, I don't want a globalist controls top, you know, and brave new world. That doesn't feel right to me. Freedom for individuals and liberty to choose. If you want to collect rainwater, there's some poor guy in Washington State. He's collecting rainwater off his roof, and they came in and shut him down and threatened to confiscate his house. Because there's a law on the books that says you have to have only state-approved water. He says, I'm watering my lawn and my plants, my animals. They say, oh, you can't do it. That's draconian totalitarian government telling you can't grow food on your lawn in Florida. Ordinances against it. Let's come together in common ground about freedom. You want to self-educate your kids? You want to be able to grow your own vegetables? You know? Do you want to be able to choose your own liberties and freedoms? That's true liberals, by the way. The original liberals, the libertines as well, I like the libertines, is about allowing others their rights to pursue their own liberty and not having draconian, centralized, authoritarian control systems. Obviously, the government fucking doesn't work. You ever stood in line at the MVD for 3 hours? And here in Arizona, there's a bunch of private people that are opening things that for $10 you don't have to stand in line. They're service-oriented. It's a pleasure to deal with those guys. There's no line. You get all your licensing crapola or whatever you need, titles taken care of. Government sucks because the motivation is gone. There's no motivation for customer service. You know, you get paid no matter what. You don't give a shit about service. But when your income, unfortunately, most people are still at that level, they have to depend on good service to be rewarded. In an enlightened civilization, but we're not there yet, in the Pleiades and other places, there's no money. You don't need a money motivator, but the humans still do. because we turn into sloth. You get the MVD or the fucking post office if it's government work. It's horrible. We had a mailman here recently just would take the mail and just throw it. He wouldn't even deliver it to us. He didn't care. You know? That's why we don't even order stuff through the U.S. Postal Service anymore. It's Amazon and FedEx, you know, UPS. Why? Because they're motivated to create customer service. It's just simple, guys. You've got to have a motivation. Anyway. So, mass hysteria happened at the end of Atlantis. Mob mentality. That's why we're fascinated, fastened into, hooked into the walking and the living dead. I would suggest this whole Russian scare, maybe I'll be wrong. I'm the first to admit I don't care about being right or wrong. I want the truth to come out. But from the beginning it has felt like a mass shadow projection of a well-intentioned, as always, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The well-intentioned stuff, right? That's what gets you the worst. Like Mark Twain says, God save us from idealists, right? Meaning utopianism. Communism is an awesome idea. Each to their need and ability. How beautiful. But if you're not ready for it, you end up with Mao Zedong killing 50 million people. With Stalin killing whatever, 20, 30 million people. It just turns horrible. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. You need the motivation of money until you're ready to get rid of the money system. In my book, I have a chapter called Exchange Your Money with Love, where I talk in detail about other planetary systems. We evolve beyond money, of course. It's Babylonian slave magic. I agree. Horrible. You know, banksters, the Fed, end the Fed. Fuck yeah. Get away from it. And there's something coming that's going to be power to the people around the money system. But it can't happen until you let go of your own fear. If you're addicted to giving the power to Wells Fargo, and you can't believe in your own online currencies or exchanges that you can own as the people, you won't have it. A couple of years ago, something named TSU.com, tried to do exactly what Facebook was doing, except you and I would own it and we would get paid for the revenues. It collapsed. Why? Because we, the sheeple, we, the cattle, weren't ready. We were like, oh, it's weird. We are addicted to authority figures. We're addicted to being suckered by Zuckerberg. Just a joke, Mark. I really appreciate being able to do this. Facebook is an awesome connector overall, I think. But for us to have our power come back to us, whether you're projecting it on Kill Hillary or the Clinton-Bush cabals, you know, Trump is an outsider. So was Bernie. Either one of those had to be shut down. They tried to. Right? They literally, in the Democratic National Congress or the National Convention, they just stole it directly from Bernie. That came out. You know, Debbie Wasserman had to resign from being caught red-handed. Seth Rich is murdered. Come on, get real. You're being played with this shit, the drama. Projecting, watching that hearing, I watched about half of it with Comey. It's just this hysterical focus of why are we obsessed with wanting to be right about what is it? It's a booby prize. You're being completely befuddled with shiny objects that will give you nothing. It's the empty bag. Like Comey would, if anything, have a motivation to show Trump as being an idiot, right? Because he got fired by him. But Comey's trying to be honest. He felt pretty genuine to me. Says the New York Times, that story was wrong about the Russian scare. And that's where it all started. It's hysteria. It's literally mass hysteria. This has happened many times before. Very recently, actually, remember, in Germany, the mass hysteria thing? And in the U.S. We were pretty much hysterical and racist about Japs in World War II, internment camps and all that. And mass hysteria is a very common thing. Few are the people that can think for themselves, feel for themselves, feel deeper. Watching that debate I could feel it. I go, oh my God, that is a major disinfo psyop that they're preparing, the Russian hacking story. The hacking, of course, goes on all the time. Why would Assange lie about it? Get real, to heal. When he's exposing the Bush and their horrible atrocities over in Iraq, shooting news reporters from Reuters, from helicopters, the left is like, oh, Assange is a saint, he's telling truth. And then when it exposes the Hillary shitola that they did with, to steal the nomination from Bernie, oh, Assange is a Russian agent. Everyone's all of a sudden a Russian agent if they don't agree with you. That's the definition of scapegoating, of creating a false flag devil to blame. It's mass hysteria. Look up the definition. Unbelievable. It's happened before many, many times. Salem witch trials is the most famous here in the U.S. But it happens tons. Look at the stories. Look at the examples. Nuns and lots of young girls. Why? And this is not male versus female. It's not about that. It's just that the emotional person will tend to surface the emotions more than those that are more suppressed. And in general, the last epoch, males have tended to be more suppressed than the feminine. So it has acted, especially when you repress sexually as nuns or young girls just coming into puberty. It's just well known, poltergeist activity. It's just, come on, get real. So it'll boil up. Look at those cases. They're amazing. They don't like to publicize them because it's probably a good idea not to, because it would actually affect the mass consciousness. So this mass hysteria could come. Now I'm feeling underneath it, instead of us all turning into zombies, or the majority of the people, again, there's always a few people, the priesthood of Atlantis knew it was coming. They went to Egypt, they went to the Pyrenees, they went to the Yucatan, they went to the Altiplano of Peru, built new civilizations and so forth. But the masses were plowed under. Just the continent sinks and they've gone crazy. So that could happen here again. Now I'm actually feeling what Spirit's doing is it's trying to since we haven't faced our stuff, okay? If you're not getting real to heal, if you're not facing your own stuff, if you're still doing the blame game, when you have at Ivy League schools, you have Yale students, oh, it was so close for me to go there, I decided no, because I didn't like New Haven. It was such a crappy town, to be honest. When Yale students are screaming at their professors about safe spaces and saying, this is not about intellectual freedom, it's about you have to keep us safe, she's going hysterical. It's almost turning into lynch mob. When you have ethics professors smashing someone that doesn't agree with his ethics, or even just his belief system, with a bike lock, massive stitches, it's getting very close to hysteria. So, my feeling, though, is what Spirit is doing, if you haven't been doing your purging, it's going to get purged one way or the other, your shit, your sins, your drama, trauma, and karma inside you. If you've not, because this is the time when the energies are rising and it's going to push your own shit out. Like in the last video I said, you're going to reflect it. If you're in the blame game and you want scapegoats, that's what's going on. All this whole thing with the Russian thing. Everyone wants to find a scapegoat. In this case, the Russians. What the fuck? Of course they're hacking shit. That's just normal. I'm going to tell you this. What really went on, there was a lot more. Yeah, if we got to the bottom of the voting stuff, it would shock you. All right. The tricks with Soros does with voting machines and so forth, and they thought they had it in the bag by switching 1% of the vote automatically and so forth. But it wasn't enough. Let's do a moment of intention. Let's agree on that. In the tent of the one, in your intention, one full conscious breath. If I can find it. Where is it? One full conscious breath, the world's shortest meditation. settle down, relax. Feel your root chakra, your feet, your whole spinal column. On the in-breath, your kundalini goes up. On the out-breath, it goes down. Be centered. Be still and know that I am God. Make me an instrument of your will, not my will, but thy will. Buddha says, St. Francis, make me an instrument. Krishna, the will of God. They all say the same thing. I want the truth. I want what really goes on. I don't want mass hysteria. I want enough of us to retain cooler heads prevail, meaning not getting caught up in the hysteria. Unless you want it to degenerate into civil war, which is what there are some influences on the earth is wanting to take America out, because America is still a bastion of, you can't totally control it here. There's enough individualistic freedom that you won't all put your hands on your head spontaneously. The recent London terrorist attack, the people automatically just put their heads on their hands and walked single file. A little bit of a creepy programming there. Pavlovian training. America isn't quite there yet, so there are influences on the planet that want to shut America down, bankrupt America, devolve it into internal strife, race war. So, don't fall for the mass hysteria. At the end of Atlantis, it's exactly what happened. It's happened before. It happened many times. There was a children's crusade in the year 1000. A 12-year-old boy from somewhere in Germany got thousands of children to march on the Holy Land. They got raped, slaughtered, mutilated, taken advantage of. It was horrible. It was a mass hysteria movement. Many of them have the Children's Crusade. Google it. Be careful as the boiling of the internal energies are happening. These collective projections, Salem witch trial hysterias, nuns starting meowing, and at the same time every day, hundreds of nuns meow, 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 meow. Right? Where the fuck is that coming from? Recent ones. Look at them. They're just happening. 2016, the clown sighting hysteria. Catching diseases from each other. Catching weird stammerings. It's very strange, mass hysteria. You can look into why it is and what it is. But this is literally what's going on with this. The Russians are coming. I'm telling you. If I'm wrong later, I'll be the first to go, yep, I apologize. I was wrong about that. But I'll hedge my bets. It's just made up. The New York Times wrote from anonymous sources that can no longer be found. That quoted. They say now they can't find those sources, or they won't talk to them anymore. Creepy. It's innuendo. It's if you're not a real journalist, if you're not a clean journalist, not taking sides, then your own subconscious is going to have you quote what you want. Listen to these. I'll try to post them if they're still available. They might have sanitized them. The call that these Russian shock jocks, Opie and Anthony types, call Maxine Waters and John McCain, certainly opposing forces apparently, but this is the game they play. They pit them against each other, divide and conquer, where they are completely taken in by these shock jocks. These are our leaders, political leaders. If you're looking to them, you're projecting your shit. Come back home to yourself. Don't project on Hillary as a psycho-globalist bitch, or Trump's a fascist psychopath. That's your projections. Heal yourself first. Then you can have clearer seeing. Lead me from the unreal to the real, away from mass hysteria. It's clinical at this point, practically. It's amazing. It's like the McCarthyism scare, which actually now it turns out there was some truth to that. Or the thing, a beautiful show, movie, I forget his name, who was a writer in Hollywood during the communist scare, and he managed to stay with his truth. Beautiful movie. The guy from Breaking Bad was the main actor. I forget the name of it right now. The same hysterias. They go back and forth. Right now it's the left doing the hysteria about the Russians. I mean, it's this, we're living in the Twilight Zone. Wasn't it usually right-wing John Birch Society people that freaked out about the Russian scare and we use that? Now we're having the hyper-left actually believe in that shit? It's a comical farce. Rapidly schizophrenic flipping is a sign of mass hysteria. Who's the next scapegoat? Oh, she's a witch, get her! It's literally at that level. Read the definition of clinical hysteria. It is a perfect description of needing to find an outside scapegoat to blame something that you can't imagine. It must have been done by the devil. I'm risking here a little bit being this open about something political because it's such a power spot. Again, remember, it's not Trump, it's not Hillary, it's you. It's your own projection. You're scapegoating your shadow, your shit on them. Trump's stirring up the shit for the surface people that aren't very deep. Now, is he consciously aware of that? Like, no. He's a tool for the collective, larger plans, okay, to play these things out. I do think God, Source, Father, Mother, Mother Earth, and Father Sky have a plan here for helping us throw up, because we're not doing our own healing. You need to induce the vomiting or the stomach pumping for us. How many people do you know whose primary thing is, I want to heal my own stuff? What? 1% of the population? Maybe? Even less? So if you're not doing it of your own free volition, then there's going to be a sort of a forced purging on the planet. And I think that's what Source is doing here by cleverly manipulating us to get outraged. Why? To get your rage out. To get terrified. Why? To get your terror out. Otherwise you will have a continual war on terror, because you're not getting it out of yourself. As within, so without. The Russians are coming. They're in your head. Back in the USSR, right? Lenin got in trouble just for creating that song. That's how much fucking paranoia there used to be about the Russians. For John Lennon writing that song, Back in the USSR, Let Me Hear Your Balalaikas ringing out. Yeah, it was like they did a Beach Boys thing in there, right? I forget. Anyway, Lenin got on the watch list because they were so fucking paranoid. Nixon. It's the same damn thing. I mean, come on, the Berkeley free speech movement in the 60s, what a beautiful thing. It comes right back to the exact place it started, its reflection. It didn't get real enough to heal, so now they have Kristallnacht, literally smashing windows. What's next? Book burnings at Berkeley? Not allowing free speech? Snap out of it. If you hate enough and project enough, you become the very thing you hate and project on. The Antifa people who say they're anti-fascist, they are total fascists. They're terror squads wearing black uniforms, shouting people down. It's exactly what the Hitler Youth and what Kristallnacht in Nazi Germany did. That's exactly what the Antifa people have turned into. Fascist intimidators. They say we're Antifa, which stands for anti-fascist, but we hate fascists so much we become the fascists. Wake up, let the shit drop from your eyes. See clearly, see beyond it. Learn to discern. Otherwise, we're doomed to repeat some history, and some of that history ain't fun. It involves a lot of pain, suffering, terror, collapses of economies, world wars, hundreds of millions of people killed. If you don't watch it, you're going to get hooked back into the old divided and conquer and starting of a World War III breakdown of the America is, pretty corrupt at this point. We're basically bankrupt. And people are so divided, we can't even have a dialogue anymore. That is ripe territory for some real fucking breakdown of society, if you fall for it. I'm the lone voice in the wilderness here a little bit, I think. God doesn't take sides. Source doesn't take sides. The Tao doesn't take sides. It's on everyone's side. It's on every soul's side. It's supporting every soul. That is deeper than temporary ideologies. God save us from idealists. Thank you, Mark Twain. All right. May some of this shed some light. If you respond to this with hatred and anger and you get triggered by it, then look at your own fucking self. Look at your own goddamn shadow. You know, if you're triggered, good. Trust your fucking triggers. Don't be a pussy. Don't be a fucking spiritual wimp. Don't be a psychological wimp. Blame is lame. Are you serious? You want to blame it on Hillary or Obama, or you want to blame it on Trump? Really? That's infantile consciousness. That's blame game. That's Johnny go, no, Tony did it. My brother, I didn't do it. That's all you're a 5-year-old, fucking scheming little childish 5-year-old if you're blaming Trump or if you're blaming Hillary. You don't even know how to find common ground yet. Makes me want to fucking puke. Makes me wonder why they fuck. Now I'm being emotionally honest. I'm being some realness here. Get real to you. Makes me go, fuck y'all. Let the fucking harvest come and nuke the fuckers. Let them all duke it out. Fuck you and good riddance. Get the fuck off the planet. So that's how I'll purge my rage, my outrage. Now it would be louder often, but get real. Get your fucking terror and rage and disappointment and fear out of you. Get it out of your bones. It's the issues in your tissues. If you don't do that, you're doomed to live it out on the outside. If you don't heal it on the inside, you will live it on the outside. I'll say it again. If you do not heal it, clear it, integrate it, solve it, forgive it, ho'oponopono it, in your issues, in your tissues, you will live it on the outside. Have a good fucking time with that. More truth later.